his way here. What's up?
great gathering of people, a remarkable gathering of people. I had the idea of doing this about 6 months ago. I did a write-up and speech for getting in the local Hall of Fame, and I thought the most important thing was pass on how incredible and fantastic the early era was, the 50s, 60s, 70s, and Laguna Park was such a great part of that. I'm down working out at East Beach, and some guy, like, this is out of a movie, who I don't know, who's not in town, who shows up on a bench, and he engages me, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing a little workout thing." And he starts talking, and he says, "I don't live in town, but I used to play baseball here." And I said, "Where'd you play baseball?" "Laguna Park." And then he said, "I went up to Don Sutton in Palm Springs at a rental car place out of the blue and said, hey, aren't you Don Sutton?" "Yes." "I saw you play baseball at Laguna Park in Santa Barbara." He said, "Thank you, that's one of my great memories. I was 20 and I've lived everywhere, and the only place that I remember the address of is my Santa Barbara first place." And so I thought this is kind of serendipitous. I think there's stories out here that need to be told and shared, and there's people that ought to get together other than just at a funeral, which is a different kind of setting. And so I crept up on calling the Sheltons and said, what if we're to have a Laguna Park reunion? And Ron calls me back on a Sunday, and I'm thunderstruck that he's even calling me. And I said, "What do you think about that idea?" He said, "Well, I wouldn't go to the Oscars, but I would certainly go to that." And I said, "Okay, I've got to follow up on this then." So anyway, I want to bring a couple of people up and just ask them a few questions so that they can share some thoughts. And I would like the Bat Boys, former Bat Boys, who for the minor league teams here, to come up and share any observations they have. And Laird Hayes is certainly one of them. And I don't know, John Franzen, if you want to...
Yeah, he does. John wants to speak first.
So, no, this is Laird the Bat Boy.
And here's Laird the Bat Boy's Bat Boy uniform. So Jeff called me and he said, "Do you have any good stories?" I said, "I have one or two." And then all of a sudden I remembered that my wife thankfully didn't throw this away as much as she wanted. Now, so this was 1962. I was a 7th grader at La Colina. And somebody asked, "How did you get that gig?" Well, my dad, who a lot of you know is kind of a wheeler or dealer, and he knew Al Gianfrido, who was the manager, and so I did it like 1 or 2 games a week because I had to go to school. So who knows why the Mets have the colors that they have? So it's blue, orange, and then pinstripes. Yeah, so when the Dodgers and the Giants moved away and the Mets were founded, somebody had the bright idea of incorporating the colors of the teams that moved and the Yankee pinstripes. So the one story I have, Al Gianfrido, who knew Al? Kind of a crusty guy, right? And so, again, I'm just a little 7th grader. I love baseball, and I forget who the team was playing. And the field house, the clubhouse, was down the left field line. And so the Rancheros were up by 7 or 8 runs going into the top of the 9th. And I had to go to school the next morning, so I thought it'd be a pretty good idea to kind of speed things up and start putting the bats away. And he saw me do that, and I tell you, he just ripped me a new one. And I learned, I was smart enough to know that, game's never over until the last out, but again, I had to get to school. Very conscientious student. So that's kind of my claim to fame, and Al just ripping me because I broke probably not only that rule of baseball etiquette, probably many more. That's it.
Thank you. And he wasn't that time after Peter Giordano was a Bat Boy also for a great era that people don't even know existed actually.
Now, I had the great distinction of being a Bat Boy for the Marine Corps team on Laguna Ballpark. How many can top that? Yeah, but the thing that's really neat about it, I lived on Coda Street, 1307 Coda, and as you all know, there was a Class C baseball team here with the Dodgers prior to World War II. And I was too young then, but now the war comes, and I live close to the ballpark and used to crawl under the fence, and I became the bat boy for the Marines. And my picture's up there just in case you didn't know it. So, very proud of that. Now, here's the good news. I had experience being a bat boy. The Dodgers come back, and I had the experience, so I became the first bat boy for the new Dodgers. So I just want you to know I'm very proud of that, and I may be the oldest one here, but I'm the only one that was a bat boy for the Marines.
So David, could you come up and, it is unbelievable, it's unfathomable that the original Laguna Park sign is here at this event. It's staggering, and it's due to one family, and here's the story.
Well, if anyone knows the Sheltons, you know we collect things. And somebody else, a friend of ours, had salvaged parts of the Laguna Ballpark when they tore it down, sadly, including part of the fence. And he built a chicken coop, and part of the chicken coop had the "Go to Church" sign on it. It was in the right field line. Unfortunately, it got burned in the tea fire, so we didn't get that. But years before that, his wife said he had to get rid of some things, and he called us up, and we went up and, of course, dragged the sign down, and we hung it up in our shop. I guess there's a photograph below that shows that. We have a few other signs there, La Tolteca and Foster Freeze and Bucks Buick and a bunch of the other ones that got thrown out that represent our past. So it's been sitting there ever since, and it wasn't. We always had an idea of fixing it or putting the neon back on it, and maybe somebody can remember the color of the neon, because none of us can. Anyway, when this event came along, I think Ron suggested to Jeff that, so as a matter of fact, we have the sign, so here it is.
There were certain little utterances that caused goosebumps for you, and that was one for me. It was like, you have the sign. That's unbelievable. So I had the good fortune of being able to talk to a number of people here, and I want to pass on a couple of words from a few people. First, I know there are many people who are looking at from the bullpen in the sky down at this, and thankful for their experience and their connection with you and with that ballpark. And it's, I know, I don't even know how to say, Mr. Padilla was just a cornerstone of that park for decades. You are the
granddaughter.
Fantastic that you're there. Tony Saka sent his regrets. He's in Scottsdale for kids, grandkids' birthday. Cesar Yusaka was obviously a huge part of this. People passed on stories. I worked for Stubby Herman once, and Stubby Herman is one of these great characters that you can't make up a Stubby Herman. And other great people who would be here if they could, but they've passed on, are Jody Nunez, Jerry Buzzard, Steve Moore, Bob Hardy. There's many others that you could think of, but I thought, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it the rest of my life, because people will start dying, and I'll start kicking myself. And so I said, I got to take a swing at this anyway. In talking to some people who couldn't come, Doug Allred from class of '53 at Santa Barbara sends his best, and he just was delighted to have the memories of back then. Talked to Chuck Schman, who said he went to get the Mets franchise in Bakersfield at the California League, and he paid $5,000. He drove with Charles Stern attorney, and they paid $5,000 for the franchise, and they're driving back, and they got it, they bought the franchise, said, now what do? We don't have any players, we don't have a bus, we don't have anything. All we have is the franchise. So anyway, and then he said that Caesar Yosaka kind of took over the lead of that in another year or so. Everyone has these great distinct memories. Dave Thompson, Santa Barbara class of '67, Chris Mangini, my class, San Marcos class of '67. I say, what's your memory? And Thompson said, I hit a rocket over right field that's still rattling around moms, or it was when the ball poured down, to beat San Marcos in the last inning. And he said, did I ever crush that ball? I said, Mangini, what's your memory of that? He said, I remember losing to Santa Barbara when Dave Thompson hits a weak pop-up to right. The wind blowing out, and it sneaks out right over the right field fence. So everyone has these distinct memories. So the most accomplished baseball person we have here is Mick Callagher, who actually overlapped in the California League with Ron Shelton. So I would like to have him come up and say a few words about some of the people who actually played here in Laguna. So come on up and I'll prompt you. So I'll ask the questions first. So how many years did you play in the bigs and how many years did you coach?
I played for 11 seasons in the major leagues, and I coached for 31 professional.
Wow.
I retired after the 2014 season.
So he was a first base coach for the Yankees, and he pitched batting practice at an age where you shouldn't still be doing that. But talk about, and his arm never got bad. And tell us who you would pitch to and what they were looking for in batting practice.
Well, major league hitters are kind of picky hitters, and they kind of have to select their own batting practice pitchers. And so I was selected by Alex Rodriguez, Mark Teixeira, Robbie Cano, and Hideki Matsui. So it was the middle of the lineup of the New York Yankees, and special requests all the way around. So Hideki wants balls down and away so he can hit the ball left field. Doesn't want to pull the balls in batting practice. Alex wants everything inside, but don't hit them. That would be good, because then you're out of the batting practice rotation. But all these hitters are so specific, and if you're not good, they'll just walk out of the cage and embarrass you. Yeah. So anyway, that's.
Okay, so we put together a list of some of the people who played here or managed here at Laguna Park. And they include Dick Williams, Rocky Bridges, Sparky Anderson. Why don't you tell us something about some of these people?
Well, let's see here. Dick Williams, he managed the major leagues for a long time, and I played 9 years in the National League. So we had a lot of confrontations with Dick Williams when he managed Montreal and several other teams. Rocky Bridges, I know what a character he was as a former major league player and a minor league manager forever. Just a great person. Sparky Anderson, I played for in Detroit. Love Sparky Anderson. He was just probably the best manager, understood people and players better than anyone that I played for, and including Red Shane Dinks, Kenny Boyer, Herman Franks, Gene Mock, a lot of major league managers, but very few people had the touch and feel and communication with his players like Sparky Anderson. He was the best. And he would brutalize the English language. So, John Zed, you probably interviewed Sparky a few times over the 30 or 40 years you've been interviewing people, but he was great. Just great. Who else we got here? Oh, Paul Blair, John Osborne, Vaughn Whipp's here. I saw Vaughn. Yeah. Wes Parker, great player, great first baseman, LA Dodger, Santa Barbara Dodger. Willie Crawford, teammate, Jack Billingham, former pitcher, Cincinnati Red, played against him for years. Don Sutton, great Hall of Fame pitcher. Talk about a curveball. Billy Oakley, I understand you had a fabulous curveball.
You did.
It would probably be just like Don Sutton's. Yeah, that good.
So I'm interested, you played in the minor leagues, and I want to just tell your perspective on if you felt you were going to make it, what was it like sticking in there? You were a third-round draft pick. Some people hang in there and don't make it. They hang in there year after year. So just talk about the whole mentality of having to deal with that when you're young in the minors.
Well, I think as a player, as a young player, and I signed out of college with the St. Louis Cardinals in 1969. You know, you don't know anything about professional baseball. You just know you want to play. That's all. And so, you know, you've got the opportunity to put that pro uniform on, and then they send you to wherever they're going to send you. And my first year was Modesto, California, in 1969. And lo and behold, who's playing in that league but Ron Shelton for the Stockton Ports, Baltimore franchise. And so it was the first time we touched base that way. But, you know, you just don't, your dream is still alive, and you just keep playing. You know, when you're a professional, it's all about success. And if you can play, then you can advance. And you never lose too much hope, because you'll get washed out real quickly. But baseball is such a tough sport to play, and you get down on yourself, and you know, you need people to pump you up once in a while. And I had that. You know, there's times when you feel like, man, I don't know if I can do this. You know, you question yourself, especially when you're going through tough times. But what it does, and all players are tough physically. They're tough because you got to be tough to play that game. But there's a mental toughness that comes with playing professional sports, and that's what separates everything. Being tough mentally will get you to the big leagues if your talent is good enough, and it will keep you there. But if you're weak mentally, oh boy, you get washed out. It's tough to survive because you just can't perform. It's all about performance, and as long as you perform, you still got a job. So you just don't lose, you know, too much hope. You just keep going and going and going, and a lot of the decisions that are made come from the front office. You have no choice about what choices they make. You just focus on what you got to do, and hopefully things come out.
There was an incident at Dodger Stadium many years ago where there was a flag burning, and Walt Raymond and I happened to be in the outfield. We told someone
In the stands.
in the stands, of course, yes. And we were not actually burning the flag ourselves. Make it clear. And I told someone, Jeff Bloomingdale, that we're as close as anyone. And he said, no, Kelleher was closer because he was playing shortstop then. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I recall it was a day game at Dodger Stadium in 1976, and a couple of guys jumped out over the left field wall with a flag and parked it in left center field. And Jose Cardinal was playing left, and Rick Mundy was playing center, and they were going to light the fire to the flag. It was on the ground, and they were going to. And here comes Rick Mundy scooping in from center field to grab the flag and take it over to the sidelines, and then the rest of the guys. But when we got back to Chicago later in the week, there was so much mail. He had 3 lockers of boxes and mails from all over the country, from VFW, from the fire department, from everybody. And it was on the wall that he was going to get traded. And the Cubs did trade him to the LA Dodgers for Billy Buckner, Ivan De Jesus, and one other player I can't think of. And that happened after the '76 season. That he became an LA Dodger and finished his career with the Dodgers. Yeah, great person. And actually, he was a Santa Monica High, so he was a Southern California kid. And actually, the first player picked in the Major League Draft of 1965. First player ever picked out of Arizona State, with Reggie Jackson and Sal Bando.
So one last question, and you've had a marvelous marriage to Renee, your wife, and which is a difficult thing in baseball with how disrupted life can be. And so you tell us about your growing up with Derek Jeter as a young player, and I want you to tell about how Jeter, who got married, looked to your marriage as the best baseball marriage he could model after.
Kind words, Jeff, thank you. I should have Renee here telling. Yeah, Jeter, I went to the Yankees in October of '95 after Steinbrenner had fired the whole major league staff. He got rid of everybody, and they were putting a new staff together, and Joe Torre was included as the manager, and I was part of that signing in '95. And then Jeter was in the minor leagues, so as a young player, and then his first, he got called up in September of '95, and then I signed with them, and then I was in the instructional league with him because he needed some things to work on. And then in spring training of '96, he went to spring training and really wasn't expected to make the ball club because we had a shortstop named Tony Fernandez. And then Fernandez got hit with a pitch on his wrist and broke his wrist. So that gave Derek Jeter a chance to play short. And I'll be darned, there was no turning back because he made the team. He started at shortstop in New York, ended up with 200 hits, was Rookie of the Year, and the rest is history. But what a great person he is, and a great talent. And it was just fun to work with him for those 17 years that I was with him. And they always called my wife Mama. So because he just he loved the way we reacted to each other. He knew her for all those years, and he never got married. He didn't want to get married while he was still playing, and he retired when he was 40 after the 2014 season. The same year I retired too, and then he was dating this gal who was the Sports Illustrated Model of the Year, and she's a wonderful gal out of the Virgin Islands. They got married and they have 2 children now, and we still stay in touch. So, all good.
Thank you. Thank you. We'd like old ball player Ron Shelton to come up, and then after Ron's done, please continue on eating, imbibing, and sharing memories with each other. So, Ron, tell us to start out with the year span of how you played at Laguna from when to when and with whom.
Well, I played from about 10 to 20, about 10 years. If you count the Pee Wee League, the Little League of Santa Barbara Rec Department never had Little League. They had their own Pee Wee League, Midget League, Junior League. And we'd have our playoffs there. I was a bat boy there. I went to minor league games with my dad there. And then when I got to Santa Barbara High School, that was our home field. And then there was a beer league team, the Goleta Merchants played there when I was in summer between high school and college. And then I got to college at Westmont, and that was our home field. And then I got to the signing with Baltimore. In Stockton, the first 2 years, Santa Barbara was still in the league, and so I came and played there as a professional. So you could say that was my home field for 12 years.
Wow. So tell us about your minor league career and what makes you transition from baseball on.
The low and away slider had something to do with it. They didn't tell me you weren't supposed to swing at that pitch. Actually, the strike of '72, I was still in AAA. I had hit 265 for the Rochester Red Wings, which had Gritch and Baylor, and was considered one of the Baseball in America called it one of the 10 best minor league teams of all time. And we won the league and the Governor's Cup and the Junior World Series and whatever. And then the strike hit. And Baltimore in those days, as Mick and I were talking, people may forget because the Baltimore is so terrible now, but when they, for 20 years, they had the winningest program in baseball. Remember they had 4 20-game winners in one season. Remember that? And they had a guy named Brooks Robinson and Boone Powell and a guy named Frank Robinson, Earl Weaver. I mean, there were like 5 Hall of Famers right there. Well, you can imagine what their minor leagues was like. It was just stacked. And when I got to AAA, there was a third baseman in the International League. I played for Rochester, the Rochester Red Wings in upstate New York. And the third baseman was a guy named Mike Ferraro, who was the 4-time in a row, when I was there, I played there for a year and a half. He was a 4-time in a row International League All-Star. And he never got a shot in the big leagues because he was they were playing him every day in case Brooks Robinson got hurt. So his reward for being so good was to stay in the minors. And then by the time he got to be 32, they traded him and he got a shot with an expansion team and got injured. Later, he was in the Yankee organization as a coach, I think, and I'm glad at least he got his pension. Because I think there's a little bit of Crash Davis in Mike Ferraro, you know. But I agree with everything Mick said. You just show up every day, and you got to play good, and don't make stupid errors, and be smart, and get on base, and know you know how to play the game right, and you can move up, honestly. But when you show up to spring training every year, it's kind of cut and dry. I got to beat out the guy ahead of me, and not let the guy below me beat me out. And you don't make a lot of close friends for a while because it might be his job or your job. And I remember in spring training one year, and this story is, as Mick would say, is repeated a million times. I was roaming with a guy who was a pitcher, and you have games with other minor league teams and inter-squad games and everything, and I think we're in Daytona Beach, I can't remember, and he had one good outing and one bad outing. And he says the next outing will determine if he is assigned to a team in the minors or goes home. And it turned out to be an inter-squad game, and I hit a home run off him. And I didn't hit a lot of home runs, I was a leadoff hitter, and he was gone. And I didn't cry any tears for him because it was my job or his job. But you learn that really fast. Really fast. So I think, as Mick says, you know, you got to be tough-minded. A lot of us were similar. You know, you're good enough to be a college star, or a high school star, but it's sort of a similar. Everybody has hand-eye skills. Certain guys, you know, just certain strength, certain things, and then once in a while there's, you know, a Reggie Jackson or something. That's like the Michael Jordan, but everybody else is somewhat similar. Not to say that, you know, the superstar pitchers or, you know, guys like the Altuves. Those guys are freaks. But the rest of us are sort of, you know, we're the stars of our town and our high school and our team, and now it's dog eat dog. And I look at it, I think it was the best preparation for everything else that happens in life. You know, you learn not to get too high when you go 4 for 4, and not to get too low when you go 0 for 4. Because it's going to happen all the time. And the guys that can manage that, those are the guys that make it.
So just parlaying that a little bit more, talk about sports as a foundation for a kid growing up, even, don't get into the minors of what it lends to your life. Because you were a basketball as much as a baseball guy, and talk about sports as a foundation for you.
Well, I think for anybody, for any kid, boy, girl, that if there's an inclination to sports, I would encourage it. I've had 4 children, 3 daughters, and I have a son. I'm married to a son who's a sophomore in high school. After 3 daughters who weren't particularly interested in sports, but look, everybody said it. It teaches discipline. It teaches reward for hard work. It teaches character. It teaches you can't get ahead by cheating. It teaches it's better to lose honorably and with dignity than to win without. All the lessons on the sports field will serve you in anything you do. You have to learn to lose. I know when my kid was 5 or 6 or 7 and they were losing, he would throw a fit, and I'd be very tough on him. And I said, you know, you're going to learn how to handle it, or you're not going to play. And people said, what is the big thing you learn from sports? Well, you learn to lose, and I don't mean by that you're a loser. I mean, you learn to deal with the loss. the first rule of Buddhist is life is suffering. You're not going to win very much in life. You're not going to get everything you want. You may not get much that you want. Some of us are lucky and God bless, but you've got to deal with the cards you've got in front of you. And you know, there's health, there's loss. Everybody has that. Family loss, personal loss. It's how do you deal with it? And I think sports teaches you how to deal with it.
So it's the early 70s, baseball's in your rearview mirror, you're driving away from the minor league stadium, there's no predestined anything of what comes next for you. So go through what you thought, what you did next, and how you built to where you are now.
Slowly, one step at a time. And I dug a lot of ditches, and I know people use that as a metaphor, but I actually dug the ditch with a shovel. I worked for landscape companies, I framed houses, I painted houses, I went back to school. I went through a failed marriage, you name it, I was there. And I think when one dream doesn't work out, it's healthier if you have another. And I knew my other dream was in the visual arts. I never mentioned that to anybody when I played baseball. All I wanted to do was be in the big leagues. But that, because of the strike, you know, the strike of '72, a lot of guys retired. Nobody ever writes about that. But I was in AAA, I had a wife and a baby. I'd been dragging them around the country, and now there was no spring training, and they thought the season was going to be canceled. And the first couple months was canceled, and I said, you know, it's time to hang them up, I'll go back to school. So, but you know, if my lifetime average in minors was 285 instead of 265, maybe I'd have kept playing. You know, and we know what the difference between 250 and 300 is if you've seen Bull Durham. It's one dying quail a week. That's what it is.
So you can look all this stuff on baseballreference.com now, everyone's minor league stats, and he had an underappreciated then, very, very high on-base percentage. It was more than 100 points higher than his batting average, and that only became a Moneyball thing much later. He had 18 sacrifice bunts in 1 year, and he got hit by pitches like 17 times in a year. So anyway, you eventually build up and you do a baseball movie. And so let's talk about that baseball movie.
Well, it was a long way from walking away to the baseball movie. I had to figure out how to make a living again. And I had a bunch of jobs that I hated. And in the meantime, when I played baseball, as Mick can tell you in the minors, you're not home. You don't have a home. Because if I'm in Stockton, or I was in Dallas, or Rochester, or Clearwater, Florida, or Bluefield, West Virginia, wherever you're stationed, that wasn't your home. You're living in an apartment there. And then you're on the road the rest of the time. So you have no home. And so guys, I had to get out of the hotel, in the motel. You're not staying in the Four Seasons in the Appalachian League, I guarantee you. Or even in the California League, or the Texas League. You're in El Paso, you're in Amarillo, believe me. So I would go to movies. And for two reasons. One is the air conditioning theaters, and the hotels were lousy. And so and sometimes I'd go with the guys, sometimes I'd go alone, I'd go to a movie at 1 o'clock, and the movie would be over at 3:30, and take a cab to the ballpark where you had to be there at 4. And so, without realizing it, I was falling in love with movies, but I was still trying to get to the big leagues. And I didn't read reviews, I didn't study it, I just go, whatever it was, if I was available, I'd sit there and watch it. And gradually they'd start to work on me. Westerns particularly, and Sam Peckinpah, The Wild Bunch. I was in Little Rock, Arkansas in the Texas League, and I saw this movie and it kind of spun me around. And years and years later, that movie became one of the reasons I wanted to write movies. I mean, way after baseball. Because when I quit, Rich called me, Baylor called me, they said, you gotta give it more, don't keep playing. It's just in the wrong organization, but I made a commitment to start over. So I did a lot of jobs, I got a master's degree, I moved back to LA, I went to University of Arizona for two reasons. One is they accepted me. the main reason. And also I had asthma my whole life, and I was told Arizona would be good for it. So that's why I did it for Arizona. And I started writing scripts while I had all these crazy jobs. And after about 10 years, and unlike most people who are precious about their writing, I'd hand them out on street corners. Anybody want to read a script? And somebody called me, he was an agent, and said, I like your writing, I want to represent you. And he got me a job writing a script for $10,000, and I was suddenly a professional writer. And that was all I did, and then I became a director and producer and all of that. But it took, I'd say, 12 years after baseball to get to where I could write something that I could sell.
I looked this up. I actually got into U of A the same year you did, post sports, and I didn't go there. I went to California law school, but I got into U of A and I was on trajectory. I might have met you there and played some pickup basketball or something like that. So, so talk about, I'm going to jump forward to Tin Cup because you're a baseball guy. It's understandable, the whole minor league baseball story, but Tin Cup is a completely different sport with a whole lot of subtlety that you have to know a lot about golf to write that movie. So let's talk about that.
Well, golf's a great game when you can't do anything else, and I still play a lot of golf. I play with my son and friends, ball players. We played, I don't know when you played, but we used to play golf and have a game that night. Go to the park early and then you get back and you sleep 11 to 3 and we'll play. And ball players would play. And pitchers all play. Major league pitchers often play golf on their day off. Some teams don't allow it, but some teams do. And there used to be a school of thought that golf is bad for hitting. Who's the guy McNeil from around here? He's a scratch golfer and he's tearing it up for the Mets. I had a writing partner that I occasionally worked with, who very good screenwriter and a buddy and a fly fisherman from Central Oregon. And he played golf at Stanford. And if you play on the Stanford golf team, you're pretty darn good, because that's where Tiger played and Tom Watson played and a lot of other people played. And we were trying to figure out, how do you do a golf movie? Because golf is too much country club, it's too rich man sport, but it's really a blue collar sport. It's here, places like this, and not nearly this nice. It's dirt tracks. You go play in England and Ireland, it's a working class sport. It's not for these cathedrals of golf we see on television every Sunday that nobody can get into unless you're a millionaire. I mean, it's, there's 200 members of Augusta and it's open about 8 weeks a year. I mean, look, that's not golf. So we kept saying, how do we make a movie for people who don't even like golf? And we're watching the Masters, and Chip Beck, on the 13th hole of Augusta, has a chance to go for the green and make an eagle and take the lead against Bernard Langer, and he lays up. And we said, that's it. We will make a movie about a guy who cannot lay up, because I can't lay up. And it's one of my strengths and weaknesses. I just can't lay up, don't know what I'm going to swing for my butt. And all right, I made a 9. Next time I'll make a 3. And so the idea of Tin Cup McAvoy came from Chip Beck laying up at the Masters. And by the way, he played it safe, thinking he could make birdie with a wedge, and he made a bogey by playing safe. And Langer went for it and made birdie. So it ended up being the hole that cost Chip Beck and gave Langer the Masters. Anyway, I know John Marvel, the writer, buddy, we did get inside golf. I got to know Gary McCord and all those guys, and they told stories, so the movie came out of that.
Fantastic. Amazing. So let's kind of finish on Bull Durham and how your whole influences led you to that.
Well, to tie Laguna Park to Bull Durham, there are some direct dot connections here. In Laguna Park, as my brother said, and by the way, my family's all arguing about what color the neon actually is. I think it's white, he thinks it's blue, somebody else thinks it's green. Which is why in this condition. But in the ballpark, he reminded me of a story when I was playing Westmont. There was a guy actually painting a billboard during a game, and a player for the other team hit a ball into left center, and it landed in the pot of blue paint. Rich Calkins, Jake was our manager, our coach. Rich Calkins was our left fielder, and he didn't know what to do. The guy circling the bases, and he picked it up and he threw it to me at shortstop. It splattered blue paint all over my glove. We held the guy at third and finally got a ground rule double out of it, made him go back and got the painter off the field. But down the right field line, as my brother pointed out, the go to church sign is interesting because what you get, the billboards ran out of room. There was like 3 odd feet between the last billboard and the foul pole. And somebody is, the sign painter painted go to church. And I'm thinking they're just saying, well, let's do something positive for the community here. We're not going to say, go smoke a joint. We're going to say, go to church. Go do a drug deal. Buy a gun. No, go to church. I don't know if the guy was religious or not, but it was like a public service announcement. Go to church. Well, later I realized I was already in church. That the church of baseball was happening right there in Laguna Park. But when I got there, I'd written a couple of movies. I didn't direct them. I knew I was going to get a chance to direct. And I said, well, I'm going to write a script about a subject that nobody knows, nobody in the movie business knows more about than me. Professional sports at the minor league level. And I think, I don't like sports movies. I never did. Mostly I didn't. I like a few. But most of them end with a home run in the bottom of the ninth to win the World Series. Doesn't happen. What Joe Carter happened twice in history. Or a half-court hook shot to win the NBA. Doesn't happen. I mean, all the games I played, there were very, very few walk-off home runs. I mean, it happens more in movies than in real life. And, you know, baseball's more about the daily grind of it and how to survive it and to excel at it, which makes it like life. So I wrote a script about that, knowing that they say, well, Shelton knows the world better than anybody, so let him, I guess, give him a shot at it. So I was lucky enough that another channel leaguer who was about to become famous named Kevin Costner, Buena High School, and grew up in the area, still lives in the area. He liked the script, he was becoming hot, we got it financed. So I go back to Durham, and the first thing we scouted, well, the Durham Park, I had visited before I wrote the script. I drove all around the South, Sally League, that's the South Atlantic League, the Carolina League, it's about the only league I never played in. And I was looking to make sure the minors were still like when I played. Because the big leagues had become corporate and impersonal, and ball players, you had to talk to their agent and their manager before they could sign an autograph. I mean, it had become very difficult. And I discovered the minors were exactly the same. Guys were sending notes to girls, guys were drinking and smoking, and yeah, I mean, it was like real life. And they were keeping their dreams alive. And everybody had the dream, everybody was afraid of being cut. And the ballparks were tiny and intimate. And when I found the Durham, North Carolina ballpark, it was right in the middle of a neighborhood, just like Laguna Park. People were walking to the game. And there were restaurants not unlike Mom's Italian Village and Arnaldi's just outside the fence. And it reminded me of Laguna Park. And then I scouted Asheville, down the road, Asheville, the oldest wooden ballpark in America. And Babe Ruth played there, and Ty Cobb played there. I mean, it was built in like 1899 or something. And we shot Crash Davis's record minor league home run there. And it was dark green, and I realized, you know, Laguna Park is dark green. Baseball parks have to be dark green. This is critical. And down the left field line, and you can see it in the movie, next to the foul pole, there's an odd little space where the billboard doesn't fit, and somebody painted in "Go to Church." And So we get back with the producer, we have a very low budget. And I get back to Durham, we're about 2 weeks from shooting. And the Bull Durham Stadium is blue. And I know we're watching every dime. And the producer and I are standing there. He says, it's a pretty regular park. I said, yeah, there's one thing wrong. He said, what? I said, it's the wrong color. He said, well, what do you want me to do about it? I said, I want to paint it green. I said, we can't paint the ballpark green. We don't have money to paint the ballpark green. When the movie's over, I have to paint it blue again. I said, I'm going to stay on schedule. This movie's going to be great. Just paint the damn ballpark green. And they painted the whole thing green just for me. And they painted it blue when it's over. And that's my story at the Church of Baseball.
So sports is many things. It's commerce at the highest level. It's art at the lowest level. And I think sports is, like a lot of things, on the smallest scale, it is the most beautiful, most pure. I had my grandson and his friend out here playing catch just as a kind of a remnant of that's how simple things can be. And you guys experienced Laguna Park when things were simple, pure, and the sound of the bat in that park would resonate. A ball being caught in a nice leather glove resonates. It's I just think there's a beauty to the smallness of sport. And can you just comment about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, baseball parks now are getting smaller again, but in a minor league park, you can hear the umpires, you can hear the arguments, you can hear the ball hit the glove, even whether there's blue paint on it or not. You know if a ball's well hit in a minor league park. You can't tell in a major league park. We hit that off the hand, we hit it off the end of the bat. You know in a minor league park, or you know when you're up close. Or recently I was in Miami and went to a Marlins park. You can hear everything there because there's nobody in the stadium. But it's the intimacy of baseball. It's quite baseball. It's a better game in person than on television. Football and basketball, unless you're front row with Bill Burke at the Laker game, but unless you're in the first few rows of a basketball game, you might as well watch it on TV. Unless you're in the first 5 rows of a boxing match, watch it on TV. Football, better on TV. Baseball, better in person. Better in person. You can see the movement. You know, you can see, oh, it's a breaking ball. Why? The shortstop just shifted. You know, what's he going to start off with this time? I mean, that's the way ball players look at game. Why? Well, the guy's 0 for 3. Yeah, but he hit the ball hard with that. He hit the fastball away hard 3 times. You know, so I'm watching a different game. I also know my wife who's never been around this kind of sports, and my son who's now a sophomore, and he's catching and playing middle infield on his high school team. And, you know, they have Saturday practice, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's September. And 7 a.m. at the school to lift weights, and she's saying, man, what about his schedule? She thinks it's way too much. I said, I don't think it's nearly enough. So we have we get big arguments about that. No, but he's doing yoga too, honey. It's okay. I just want to say, in closing, that the joy to me here to see old friends. I mean, Bill Burke and I go back maybe 90 years in this town. Lambert and Neil Wright and so many people that I see and Pentard, everybody. I'm not even mentioning everybody. Billy Oakley, but. You know, this is I don't live here, but this is my hometown. I'm proud to be from Santa Barbara, and you know, the public schools, the high school, the college, all of that, and the friends I made. I still think about the place all the time, and thank you for coming out, because the Oscars bore me, but this doesn't.
This goes, the crux of the question is that Laguna Ballpark goes international. Does anybody remember a Cuban player that played for the Dodgers, probably when you were the bat boy, named Barreau?
Yeah.
Does anybody remember a gentleman named Barreau?
Fidel Barreau?
Yes. Cuban.
Yeah.
The Foresters had the opportunity in 2006 to go to Cuba to play the junior national team. And when I was there, I would always see this tall, thin, smiling Cuban, kind of from afar, looking at us. And every time I turned around, there he would be. So one day I just waved at him. And he with his white teeth, he flashed the biggest smile. And then we left. 2 years later, we went back, Santa Barbara Foresters, and this time we played the Cuban national team at Latino Americana Stadium in Havana. So we go out there, we get there, and all of a sudden I feel this presence, and here's this gentleman. And I went, I know you. You saw us 2 years ago. In my broken Spanish. My Spanish sucks. It's almost as bad as my English. And I shook his hand. He says, my name is Mr. Burrow. Santa Barbara. Yo jugar baseball. Santa Barbara. Laguna Park. And Wayne Siemens happened to be there, who played with Ron at school and coached. So he met us. The next day, he brings me a postcard. It was a postcard from the Miramar Hotel in 1960. So here I am, 4,000 miles away in a communist country, and we had a gentleman that played at Laguna Park and had the fondest memories of Santa Barbara and this experience. I just want to share that.
I just want to note that this is one of the greatest assemblage of sports people I've ever seen in Santa Barbara, except when Sam Cunningham probably had lunch by himself once. But Laird Hayes says, let's try to assemble and try to get one picture here, and we have enough photographers. One thing I would say about the demise of Laguna Park, it wasn't right. The fact the city took it over for utility purposes does not mean that that is a more important use than recreational purposes. And Joni Mitchell wrote in 1970, they paved Paradise and put up a parking lot. And that's exactly what the year that happened here. And they didn't replace the park as they had promised. But anyway, we had these great experiences. I'm glad we had an opportunity to get together for this. So I don't know where the best place to assemble for a picture might be.
Ron Shelton right now, he's got a little experience.
He's off duty.
Maybe over here with the sign in the back. And then please resume at your places, sharing memories with each other and eating and drinking, etc. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hold on, wait, how do you, this way, that way?
Oh, that looks beautiful.
All right. We're gonna do this one?
You got it.
You got it on that?
One more. Wiggins, come over a little bit. Yeah, right there. Good. Perfect. Cliff, get on your toes.
I am.
You look beautiful, guys. Woo!